Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best teamfight champions. So this is obviously just my opinion, and there are a lot of other good teamfight champions in the game. The way I came up with this list is I kind of thought once it does reach the mid to late game, which champions would I want to have on my team the most? Which champions do provide like a very strong team fight? I did have a bit of a criteria when making this list. Number one, the champion needed to have like good AoE damage or strong team fight damage. And number two, they needed to have good crowd control. Now, if they had both of these things, then they would probably be like higher up on my list. And if they only did like a really good job at one of the two, then they would be probably an honorable mention. So the way I'm going to be formatting this video is I'm going to give you one strong teamfight champion for each role, and then I'm also going to give you two honorable mentions for each role. Now, like I did say before, this is just my opinion, so be sure to let me know down in the comment section below of some strong teamfight champions that you guys like to play. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So first up, starting in the top lane, I have Gangplank. Gangplank does meet that criteria of having good crowd control and really strong AoE damage as well. He's got great CC with the slow from his ultimate and the slow from his barrels, and his barrels just provide so much AoE damage in those mid to late game team fights. He is definitely a little bit harder to pick up on though, so if you're looking to like play Gangplank, then I would definitely recommend trying him out in normals before you do head into ranked. Get your barrel combos down, because once you do that, he can be a very strong champion. But I've seen a lot of Gangplank players just not even like use their barrels in team fights, and they just kind of run around using their Q, which is not really the point of playing Gangplank. You want to get that AoE damage from your barrels off in team fights, and if you can do so, he can be one of the best team fight champions. So first on the honorable mentions for top lane is Wukong. Wukong does provide good crowd control for his team with his ultimate, and his ultimate also does provide really good damage. He can pretty much one-shot an enemy squishy champion by just jumping in, using his EQ, and then popping his ultimate. The amount of burst you do have with like Assassin Wukong is pretty crazy, and it makes his team fight definitely one of the best for any top laner. And the final honorable mention for top lane is Rumble. So the main reason why Rumble is such a good teamfight champion is due to his ultimate as well. His ultimate provides really long range engage, and it also provides really good CC and great damage as well. By hitting good Rumble ultimates, you can just single-handedly win your team games once it does get to a mid to late game teamfight. And I always like having a good Rumble on my team, because I know that if they can just consistently hit their ultimate, then it's going to be really easy to win if the game does go to mid to late. So my number one pick for mid lane is actually Kennen. So Kennen has seen quite a rise in the mid and the top lane recently. I think he's a much stronger pick right now, and it's just because he does a really good job at engaging with his E and Proto Belt. If he does have his like Proto Belt and his flash up, his engage is pretty much uncounterable unless you do have like an Ashe on your team or a Janna, someone that can stop his engage. He's going to be very successful at just diving in on that backline. A good Kennen ultimate in a team fight can pretty much like single-handedly win your team the game. The amount of damage he can do with his ultimate and his W, or the amount of AoE damage I should say, is just really insane. So if you can play a good Kennen, then he can be a really strong team fighter. The first honorable mention for the mid lane is Viktor. So Viktor's burst damage is just really good once you do get a few items on him. It's so hard to play AD carry or even mid lane against a Viktor, because if you just make that one positional error in a team fight, he can just pop his ultimate on you, use his Q, and you're pretty much dead. He doesn't even have to like use his E most of the time, or sometimes you don't even like have to use your ultimate with Viktor. You can just EQ, and the amount of damage that those two abilities do is just really crazy. So as long as you can just get past the early game as Viktor, get a few items on him, then your burst damage is going to be really good for those mid to late game team fights. And let's not forget that he does have pretty good crowd control in his kit as well once he does get the Rylai's. The Rylai's just allows him to kite really nicely in those team fights. He does have the speed boost with his Q as well once he does get that upgraded, so he's a pretty safe and a pretty strong team fight champion. And the final honorable mention for mid lane is Karthus. So Karthus isn't a champion you see a whole lot, but he has been known as like one of the strongest mid to late game teamfight champions just due to the amount of AoE damage he can pump out with his E and his ultimate. You really don't even need to like be a skilled Karthus player to do well on him once it does reach the mid to late game, because you can just dive into a middle of a teamfight with your E active, you can Zhonya's, and then if you do end up dying, you can just pop your ultimate for a load of damage. So once it does reach that mid to late game, I just always hate playing against a Karthus because he's going to get a ton of guaranteed damage off no matter if he does no matter if he plays it like completely wrong, he just gets blown up right away. He can still use his ultimate for free damage, which makes him a really strong teamfight champion. So my first pick for jungle is Fiddlesticks. So Fiddle does meet that criteria of having a very strong AoE damage kit, as well as providing good crowd control for his team. He's got the fear with his Q, which is a really long fear. It lasts for like 2.5 seconds, I'm pretty sure, once it is maxed out. So if you can just hop in with your ultimate, get a load of AoE damage off, end up fearing the enemy AD carry, then you're gonna do really well for your team once it does reach the late game and once you start team fighting. The first honorable mention for jungle is Sej. So Sej does provide really strong crowd control once it does reach that mid to late game with her ultimate, her Q, and her E. She does lack damage a little bit compared to someone like a Fiddlesticks, but one good ultimate in a late game team fight can just win your team the game single-handedly, and that is why I really like to have a Sejuani on my team, and I always hate it if the enemy team has one once it does reach that late game, because I know that if my AD carry just missteps a little bit, then they could end up getting caught out and just lose the game for our team. And the final honorable mention for jungle is Amumu. So the reason why Amumu is such a strong team fighter is just because of his ultimate. He's always been known as one of the best teamfight champions, and it's why he's had one of the best win rates for any jungler in the game for just such a long time. Amumu's win rate has never dropped below 50% for like countless patches now, and if you can just get one good ultimate off with Amumu and transition that into a dragon or a baron, or just end up winning the game, then you're going to do really well on that champion, and it makes him a great team fighter. So my number one pick for AD carry is going to be Ashe. It was a little bit harder for me to choose like the AD carry champions for this list because let's be honest here, every AD carry in the game can be strong at team fighting once it does reach the mid to late game. But the reason I chose Ashe here is because she's just a crazy strong champion in general right now. She does provide really good team fight for her team though, with her strong crowd control from her ultimate, her W, and then her passive as well. So once you do reach that mid to late game, I think that Ashe would probably be the AD carry I would want to have the most on my team, just because like she can pick really well with her ultimate. If she can get that ultimate off on like the mid laner or the AD carry in a team fight, then she can do really well at winning her team that fight. And she can also kite really well, which makes her a great team fighter too. The first honorable mention for AD carry is going to be Twitch. So a good Twitch player in a mid to late game teamfight can absolutely destroy and single-handedly carry that fight. The reason I have Twitch here is because he provides really strong like AoE damage with the runanes and with his E in teamfights, and he can also stay really safe in the back line with his ultimate. He does have that element of surprise as well with his Q, which makes it really hard to play against Twitch once it does reach the mid to late game, because he can just come in stealth and wait for the enemies to like blow their ultimates on other targets, and then Twitch just pops out of stealth, he uses his ultimate and just sprays down the back line for a load of damage. So in my opinion, Twitch is one of the best teamfight AD carries. And the second honorable mention for AD carry is Misfortune. So Misfortune really doesn't provide any strong crowd control for her team in those late game team fights, but she does provide really strong AoE damage with her ultimate. Her ultimate can just shred champions really well once it does reach that mid to late game, because if you do go for like the Youmuu's Black Cleaver build, then you're gonna do a lot of damage yourself with your ultimate, but your team is also going to be able to do a lot of damage since you're gonna be shredding the back line with those Black Cleaver procs. So overall, if you can just position well in team fights as MF and get a nice 3 or 4 man ultimate off, then you're gonna do really well in those team fights. My number one pick for support is going to be Braum, so I always like having a Braum on my team once it does reach that mid to late game because he just provides really good crowd control and really good protection for his team. If the Braum knows what he's doing, then he should be able to peel really nicely for his AD carry and keep them really safe. When choosing the 3 champions for support, I wasn't really thinking about like how much damage they can do because support champions don't really do like a whole lot of damage. They're just there to like keep their AD carry safe and provide strong crowd control for their team. So if the support did provide good crowd control and they also did have like good protection for their AD carry, then they made it high up on my list, and that is why Braum is at my number 1 spot. The first honorable mention for AD carry is Sona. So Sona is like a really strong pick right now. Even after she did get the hotfix, she still does have the best win rate for any champion in the game, even after she did get that little nerf. So I think that the reason why Sona is a strong teamfight champion is because she provides really good utility for her team with her movement speed buff from her E, and she can also like heal her teammates up a lot with her W in those late game team fights. Her heal and her E are going to be on like a 3 or 4 second cooldown once it does reach that mid to late game, so you can just keep your team really mobile with your E, heal them up with your W, and then you also have your ultimate as well if you want to look for that pick or if your team does get engaged on. And to round out this video, the final honorable mention for support is Janna. So Janna is a great teamfight support because she does provide some of the best peel for any support in the game. Her ultimate and her Q just make it really hard for enemy champions to dive in on her back line. If you are playing against like a Kha'Zix or a Rengar as Janna, then you should easily be able to keep your AD carry safe in those teamfights and make those champions really useless. So the main reason why I have Janna at this spot is just because of her raw ability to keep her AD carry safe. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, then please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you guys have not already, and also be sure to let me know down in the comment section below of some other strong teamfight champions that you guys like to play, because obviously there are a lot more good teamfight champions in the game, and this list is just my opinion. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.